Welcome to another S&P 500 analysis. Today is September 1st, 2021. Now, is the market exhausted or just taking a pause for another big move to a new all-time high? We saw the price of the S&P 500 kind of reverse itself this afternoon. So we're going to take a closer look at this price action in this video, so stay tuned. Let's start with this intraday chart here of the S&P 500. This is a 3-minute intraday chart. As you can see, the S&P 500 gap up on the open, and the breadth is pretty much positive except for a short, brief period of time that the decliner was actually outnumbered the advancer. But that was kind of short-lived. But all in all, as you can see, throughout the day, it's basically been sitting above that 1100 level. And then until near the close, kind of dipped down a little bit and close at with 814 more advancing issue than declining issues. And in addition to that, the put call ratio has been pretty much in the the 0.5 to 0.45 area throughout the day. So the market participants are definitely putting on risk. And also the VIX was a little bit elevated at the open, somewhere around 16 and a half, and the market participant have no fear, and essentially just putting on risk throughout the day. And near the end, it's kind of came up a little bit, but still finished the day with 16.12 on the VIX, and that is nothing to be fearful about. And the up-down volume ratio has been pretty much positive throughout the day. It's basically 1.7, 1.5 area, and finished the session with a up-down volume ratio in favor of the up volume, 1.2. And the new high, new low, there were 166 more new 52-week high than 52-week low in the New York Stock Exchange. But look at here, the S&P 500, but it got a little bit of a reversal around 1:30 Eastern time. And it did not get up to a new all-time high or even up to the previous all-time high. 130 is kind of faded, getting this lower low, lower high sort of formation come down. Now, is that due to OPEX? Because today is Wednesday OPEX, so there could be some shenanigan, right? Because definitely looking at the breadth and the internal, one would think that the market would be a little bit more strong toward the close. Now, let's take a look at this daily chart of the S&P 500. Here's the all-time high on Monday. The all-time high is 4537.36, and today's high is 4537.11. So we miss it by 20 some odd cents, right? 36.11, so that's about 25 cents. So that's kind of interesting. And also looking at the VIX, once again, it's way below this 20 level, and the put call ratio is down at this 0.5. Also indicated that in the previous video that whenever we see the VIX come down to somewhere around this 15 level, then the market seems to reverse itself and kind of get a little bit of a spike. And that's where we may be seeing a little bit of a pullback. So it'll be interesting to watch in the coming day. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is the jobless claim report. So maybe that would pull it down to this 15 level and get the S&P 500 to start another leg of maybe 1 or 2% pullback. Whoopie-doo, right? Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that tomorrow to see what that jobless claim report will due to the market sentiment here. And here looking at the up-down volume ratio, once again, essentially 1.22, it finished at 1.22 in favor of the up volume. The New York Stock Exchange advanced lead the decliner by 824. And the new high, new low, there were 187 new 52-week high versus 21 new 52-week low. So the 52-week high outnumbered the 52-week low by 166. And here it's kind of interesting, with the S&P 500 kind of, did not show a strong close into a new high. it sort of kind of gives the advanced decline line a little bit opportunity to catch up, right? Because it needs to get above this 18,664. So right now, today, it closed at 17,560, right? So that's a little bit about 1,100 or so. When we see the advancing issue outnumber the declining issue, maybe tomorrow or something, over that 1,100 and change, then the AD line would have caught up with the S&P 500, and that will resolve this negative divergence. And here's the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq did put in a new all-time high today. The Nasdaq 100 at 15,696.42, and also closed with a new all-time closing high, because this one here is 605.09, right? That's on Monday. It closed at 15,605.09. Today it closed at 15,611.57. So the Nasdaq 100 closed with a new all-time high. And here on the up-down volume ratio, the Nasdaq up-down volume ratio was in favor of volume at a 1.4 time up volume more than the down volume. And the advanced decline, the advancer outnumbered the decliner by a margin of 698. And here in the Nasdaq, there were 196 new 52-week high versus 57 new 52-week low. So there were 139 more 52-week high than 52-week low. But again, looking at the advanced decline line in the Nasdaq market, it is still showing this divergence. So there's a long way for the Nasdaq AD line to come and catch up to this peak here. So today, the sentiment and also the internal is not that negative, but the S&P 500 definitely show a little bit of a shenanigan toward the OpX type of price action. Because let's go and take a look at the EMini SP500, and I show you why I think that this is just a little bit shenanigan, but doesn't mean that we could not see a little bit of a pullback in the next day or two. So, but definitely this is not the top for the S&P 500, and let me show you what made me believe that. Let's take a look at the profile chart. This is a volume profile chart on the EMini SP 500. And as you can see that right now it seems to be balancing up here. Now the other thing is this does not show the overnight session or the extended hour price action here. And let me turn that on, and we can see one of the reasons why I believe that the S&P 500 has not seen the top yet. Notice this high over here. This is the Globex high, and this is on Monday before the Tuesday open. Okay, so this is August 30th. Okay, you notice that this high here, this is the extended hour here, the overnight session on this graded area, gray shaded area. So you can see that the price even here did not come up to tag this high here. Neither did it came up today to tag this high. So this high will likely get tagged during the regular hour, regular trading session. Now, when this will happen, nobody knows. And here, looking at the market profile chart, you can see that these are the levels that need to be cleaned up. Right, a lot of level on the downside here. Now, there's this all-time high made during Globex hour on August 30th, and that level is 45.42 and a quarter. Zooming this in and taking a closer look at the EMini SP 500 market profile. Now, we did see this poor high got resolved today. In addition to that, we also took out this poor high. So these two poor high got resolved today. Now, there is another poor high down here. So if tomorrow the market decides to continue to pull back, then look for this poor high to possibly get tagged, and also this point of control. Okay, so those are some of the levels to keep an eye on in the coming days. But the key thing is pay attention to this possibility of the EMini SP 500 come up and tag this level, and that will also pushes the SP 500 to another new all-time high. Now let's take a look at the heat map for the S&P 500. As you can see today, consumer stable is kind of strong, but the real estate is strong, and also utility is strong. Financial is weak. The semiconductor are kind of weak, and also healthcare kind of mixed bag. And the industrial is weak. So consumer discretionary is also a little bit weak. And here looking at the heat map of the Nasdaq 100, again, notice the semiconductor relatively weak. Majority of them is pretty weak, except for ASML, and also NVIDIA was a little bit on the upside by 0.25%. But again, you notice that the FANG stock is basically the one that is pushing it again. We got Tesla and Amazon is relatively weak today. And here's the heat map for the Russell 2000. See the Russell 2000, healthcare is pretty strong, but the financial is weak, industrial weak, utility is strong, and the real estate sector is strong also. Now let's take a look at the different sector in terms of the performance relative to the S&P 500. So right now, this is the TLT, that's the 20-year bond. And we're basically looking at this ratio chart here. You can see the ratio of the TLT to S&P 500. You can say it's kind of relatively flat for the last couple months, while the S&P been trending upward. And here for GLD, the gold ETF, you can see that it's pretty much underperformed. The ratio been going down for the last couple of months, while the S&P 500 been going up. So gold has been underperformed relative to the S&P 500. And here for the industrial, also the industrial has been underperformed relative to the S&P 500. So has been the transportation. Now, utility is kind of interesting. Utility in the last month or so been kind of coming up and seems to be a little bit outperforming the S&P 500. And that could be a sign that some of the market participant is quietly shifting the money, toward a little bit of a defensive play, right, into the utility sector. And here's the financial. The financial seems to be outperformed the S&P 500 for a month or so, and then underperformed for a couple of months. And right now, it seems to be outperforming the S&P 500, except for the last few days. It seems to be underperforming. But the trend seems to be that the financial is outperforming the S&P 500 a little bit in the last month or so. And the technology been outperforming the S&P 500. As you can see, the ratio or the relative strength has basically been going up. Technology is quite strong since the early part of May or mid-May. In semiconductor, although the semiconductor seems to be outperforming the S&P 500, but if you look at this relative strength chart here, it doesn't appear that way. And I think maybe it's because that we've seen the NVIDIA and the AMD making these big moves. And then once in a while, we have the entire sector kind of join in and give us that perception that the semiconductor sector is really that strong. But if we take a look at the individual stock in the semiconductor sector, you can see that there has been some weakness in a lot of the semiconductor stock, other than the NVIDIA and AMD. Even AMD is off quite a bit from its high. So keep in mind, that sector might be a little bit misleading in terms of the strength. But looking at this relative strength chart here, this ratio chart, it doesn't appear to show the same strength as the XLK, the technology sector overall, right? That include the FANG stock. So So that kind of show a lot more strength from the FANG stock. And here's the healthcare. Healthcare is also outperforming the S&P 500. Now, the energy, we know the energy been underperformed, and we can see that on this relative strength chart here. The energy sector is still quite weak comparing to the S&P 500. But strangely enough, the natural gas been strong, right? So you can see the relative performance basically outperforming the S&P 500 since end of May. And here, looking at the real estate sector, seems to be kind of flat, essentially keeping up with the S&P 500. And here's the material, the XLB, the ETF seems to show some weakness here on the material. So, but we just have this infrastructure bill pass, right? So maybe we could see some outperformance in the near future. So kind of keep an eye on this to see does this come up and show us that that the market is anticipating some good thing to happen in the material sector from that infrastructure bill. And here's the home builder. So the home builder has been kind of strong in the last couple months, although from May, middle of May or early part of May, it's been kind of weak, been basically underperformed the S&P 500. But right now, it seems to getting a little bit of a revival, sort of a little bit of outperforming the S&P 500. And with the Fed talking about tapering, kind of makes you wonder, right? So, typically if the interest rate is going up, especially the long-term rate going up, that typically is not good for the housing market. But right now, it seems like the home builder is still outperforming the S&P 500. And here's the retailer. This is the XRT, the ETF on the retail sector. And you can see that the retail sector has been quite weak and underperformed the S&P 500. Although in the price action here, it doesn't appear that they are weak because they basically pretty much in this consolidation area here, right, between this 98.5 to this 89.75. So, but certainly it hasn't been going up along with the S&P 500. And here in the consumer discretionary has also been kind of weak, underperformed relative to the S&P 500. And maybe consumer might be running out of money to spend. And so has the consumer stable. And that's been kind of underperformed the S&P 500 as well. So as you can see, most of the sector is not doing that well other than the technology. Even the semiconductor was kind of flatlining relative to the S&P 500. All right, let's take a look at the S&P 500 daily chart here. As you can see, that this is trying to make toward this 200 extension at the 45.44 or the 127 at 45.46. Remember, what basically was talking about this 45.50 here. And right now, today, it appeared that it was on its way to get up to that level and seems to run into a little bit of a detour. Remember, we talked about the price reversal earlier in the afternoon. So we're going to see what the jobless claim number tomorrow to see how the market will react to that. If it react positively, then we probably could see the S&P 500 come up and take out this 45.50. But if we act negatively, then we could see it pull back into these level here, this 100 level here, especially this 4479.86, so about 4480 level. So watch that. And if that continue to pull back, then eventually we're looking at the possibility of coming back in to this balance area at 4430. But tomorrow, kind of keep an eye on this level here, 4480 and the 45.50. So those are the two levels to keep an eye on. And here looking at the Nasdaq 100, see the Nasdaq came up to this trend line and kind of bump up, got a little bit of a rejection here. So we could see it pull back to this 1618, somewhere around 15,233 in the coming day, and also fill this low gap here. So kind of keep an eye on that, unless it could continue to break out and move toward this 200% extension, and that would be 15,950 level. And here on the Russell 2000, remember we are keeping an eye on this level here, 2297. It is inching its way closer to this 2297. So keep an eye on it to see would it be able to reclaim and get above this 2297 and possibly get above this. And this right here is 2313 or so, 2317, 2315. And if we get above this, basically the balance zone, this balance area, break above this balance area, then there's a good possibility that we could see the Russell 2000 try to come back up to its all-time high up at this 2360 area. And for the Dow Jones Transportation, it is still having difficulty of coming back up above the 15,000 level. So it seems like it is still struggling. And if it breaks this little bit of a trend line here, I still be looking for the Dow Jones Transportation to come back down and test this 14,242 area. And also the Dow Jones Industrial is also showing a little bit of a weakness. It seems to be getting tired here. And you can see that we could see it come back into this balance area here. And if it dipped below the 35,000, we could see a retracement back down to this area underneath the 34,000. And here the New York Stock Exchange Composite, see that it got pretty close to closing at a new all-time high here. See, this is the all-time closing high at 16,875.09. It did not make a new all-time high today because here's the new all-time high, and that is see what that value is, 16,887.25. So today's high was 16,879.85. So just a touch below that. We'll see if the New York Stock Exchange Composite be able to push into a new high territory in the coming day. And looking at the S&P 500 ETF, the SPY, you can see that it came up and took out this 200% here, the extension, the 452.75, and dipped back in. It attempted a couple occasions already. So it seems like it is having difficulty staying above that. But nevertheless, we still keep an eye on it just in case that if we could get above this 452.75, then we'd be looking at this 453.95, potentially 454 area, and see if with that level get tagged. If it doesn't and it start to pull back, then we'd be watching this composite, value area here for it to pull back to see what it come back below this 447.78, essentially coming back inside of this area. Then these are the levels that we will keep an eye on for the SPY, 447.80 or 447.78, and then the 442.47. This is the composite point of control. So those are the two levels to keep an eye on for the near term if the SPY decided to dip back into this balance area. And here's the QQQ, the ETF for the Nasdaq 100. You can see it took out this 100% extension at 379.22. So right now, we're essentially looking at the possibility if it's continuing to move up is this 200% extension at 388.62. Now, if it does decide to pull back, there is a couple high volume zone here that it could come down and sort of chop around. So these are some of the zone here, somewhere around this the upper, between 376 and 375 to 372. So this is one area that it could come down and chop around if it failed to hold this area here, somewhere up at the 380, right? The 380.74 to 378.74. So if it failed to hold this this zone, then look for it to come back down to possibly find some support in this 375 and 372.5 type of a balance area there. Okay, so those are some of the level for the coming day for the QQQ. So as you can see from the price action of the S&P 500 and some of the market internal, it doesn't show sign that this market is going to roll over, but it also doesn't mean that we could not expect a minor pullback in the coming day, because the market is showing it is getting a little bit higher, and so it could pull back a little bit before it decide on its next move. So be sure to click on the subscribe if you're not a subscriber or you're new to this channel, and also click on that notification icon so you won't miss any future video from me. And be sure to smash that thumbs up to give it a like and help me promote and share this video. Thank you for watching and stay safe.